Our next set in the world of Flesh and Blood takes us back to the mystical realm of Aria, and specifically to Candlehold. So here's everything you need to know about Aria, Candlehold, the story for the upcoming set, and what you might expect when you get there. So first things first, let's talk about where Aria is located. If you don't know, if you're new to the game, this is the map of Wraith. This is what we know of as Wraith, and if we are looking for Aria, you can see in the upper right hand portion of the map is the mystical realm of Aria. It is surrounded by an invisible force field, if you will, and within the realm of Aria flows this force called the Flow that transforms the landscape as it passes by. So what once could be mountains are then, the flow moves over them, peels away and reveals caves, or if it were a verdant meadow, it then becomes, like a full of this rushing river. Basically, the landscape is ever changing and nothing is quite set in stone, but it is incredibly lush, incredibly fertile, and there's lots of, food abundance, ability to survive. Basically, it's this beautiful, dense forest, mountain range area, valley. It's fantastical in every sense of the word. There are three main points of interest that are talked about heavily in the lore of Aria. The first of which being Eisenloft, which is up in the peaks of Mount Eisen and around Mount Eisen. And this is the stronghold of the Order of Olin, which is where Oldhim was from. He was an Olin, which are basically just elemental guardians of Aria. They defended Aria against whatever came to attack it through the veil that is protecting Aria as a whole. And at the end of the Third Age, their fortress here in Eisenloft exploded into ice. It was basically frozen solid, and everyone that was fighting at the time, including Oldhim, was frozen along with it. And I believe the reason was the elemental that fought alongside of the Olin and basically protected Aria. There are several elementals within this section of the world, and this one was in control of ice, exploded and died and froze everyone as its last, sort of act to try and protect the Olin and Aria from the forces of the Void at the end of the Third Age, essentially the Aesir, their Embras. More lore. If you want more description of what's happening in the Third Age, leave a comment down below. I'll get right on that if people want to watch it, and if you watch this video. Nevertheless, they froze everything, and Oldhim, along with his brethren, were all frozen solid. He wakes up because he realizes that something else is stirring as well, and problems are coming. Volthaven is the second of the locations, and this one is essentially a giant floating city on floating rocks, and the reason it's floating is because people say that the Ancient of Lightning, Yvor, Lightning and Ice specifically, when it died defending its people against this Third Age calamity, its body drifted up into the heavens and formed the Isles of Enyon. And this is actually the starting point of Lexi's story and how we lead into Candlehold, which we'll talk about here in a moment, because that storyline is what's sort of being carried forward into Rosetta. But let's go ahead and talk about Candlehold. Candlehold is to the east side of the world tree called Corsham, and it is a very secretive and eternal forest called Candlehold. And there's a reason that it's eternal, and there's a reason, which we'll talk about here in a moment, that it has been essentially untouched by the passage of time, just in general. Their energy is kind of crackling and a little bit more unstable than the flow. It's called the Strail, and it is aggressive and volatile, as you can see there. But the Queen of Candlehold sits atop a throne of Elderwood as her mind wanders to the time of the Ancients, which is the Third Age, when her people were fighting against these terrible beings from another plane. Her people, once mighty defenders, had fallen from grace after the fall of the ancient Davnir, which again we'll talk about in a bit, but is the elemental of Earth, essentially. And they've sort of been trapped inside the forests of Candlehold for eons. Trapped is kind of a loose term, because more often than not, or what is more accurate in the lore, is that they're just choosing not to leave. Many of them are literally choosing to just stay within the beautiful grove for eons. But she, the queen, is technically trapped because she is bound and melded to the forest, and in some ways, shape, or form, she kind of created it. But because the shifting of the flow and the wavering of the barriers that protected Arya, things are changing, and she is passing as all things do. Now, this sort of lore article, lore dump, has so much good stuff in it. If you want to know what happened leading up to the creation of Candlehold and, like how important the queen is, read the entire thing. But I'm going to hit a couple of main points so that you can understand how important the passing of the queen is, because that's what Rosetta is all about. If you're unsure or if you don't believe me, here is the article for Rosetta, and here is the explanation as to what the set is actually about. A candle flickers. A candle that has stood at the head of this mantle of this magical grove, buried deep within Arya for an age and an age again. But the wick draws short. The warmth and light of the candle will soon turn to darkness and sorrow. From the earth the Queen of Candlehold was born, and to the earth she must return, for death is a necessary arc of the cycle of life. While the Rosetta mourn and friends from across Arya journey to pay their respects, the heartbeat of Candlehold must be preserved and the germination ritual complete. From where the hand of autumn fells the canopy's crown, the earth decomposes and returns its essence to us again as new, verdant life. So the point of this set and what is actually transpiring during Rosetta is that the Queen of Candlehold is finally passing away and returning to the earth where she came. And why is that important? Well, to understand the importance of this, you kind of need to understand who she is. And this article explains it quite well. Essentially, at the end of the Third Age, when Davnir the Elemental dies to the horrors of what we can only assume to be the Aesir and perhaps Arathiel from all the way back ago, when a Davnir, Ancient of Earth and Lightning, is struck down in front of her, she does something very crazy. This is the Queen of Candlehold, but at that point, probably not recognized that way. Alongside of the Olin and the Seers, by the way, point that out. The Olin were fighting this battle as well. The Seers, which we have not seen yet, but very well could see in the future, and perhaps even some hints in this set, because it does tie in to the current events of the storyline. Unlike them, they were all fighting together. Her side of the engagement, her brothers and sisters, lose hope and lose power because they lost Davnir, right? Which is essentially their earth and lightning attunement. So what does she do in a final act of desperation? She ignited the essence of Davnir and unleashed its full potential in reckless abandon. In the same way that the Ancient of Ice dies and everything explodes into ice and is frozen, she ignites the essence of lightning and earth, and everything goes up in a violent storm, erupting in an overwhelming torrent as it ravaged the land and transformed its inhabitants. So, she basically ignites the essence of Davnir, and in doing so, a lightning storm combines with massive growth, and an entire forest is created, and all of her people are saved, but they are melded with the volatile energy of Davnir, a power born of her own reckless spell. They become one with the enchanting woods. So they don't necessarily look like this beforehand, but the Rosetta become the true Rosetta that we know. These people bound by, plants and bound with plants and lightning after the spell that ignites the Davnir, the elemental power of earth and lightning. That is what causes all of this to transpire. And this explosion basically like nullifies her, puts her into a deep sleep, and essentially like buries everyone in their essence and reverts them into sort of this essence soul state. And she falls asleep. Eventually, all time and eternity passes before she wakes up from her sleep and pulls herself out. This is literally her pulling herself out. She has become one with Candlehold, its charge, its carer, and its prisoner. She's bound to Candlehold. She is Candlehold in a lot of ways. And her people are these drifting spirits, like will-o'-the-wisps, essentially. She takes them, infuses the will-o'-the-wisps into seeds, and then plants them, nurtures them, waters them, and grows these spirits that were her people before into tree people, the true Rosetta that we know. And they all, one at a time grow and become sentient people again, this time completely transformed and not looking like they did before, all except one who the seed was launched far to the edges of Candlehold into the brambles that surround the forest. This is a magical forest that is essentially sort of like its own protection, but these brambles kind of grew up around the sides and like absorbed some of that energy and grew well within it. Well, this final seed is found years later, and it is fighting for its life amongst these brambles that are trying to sort of suck its power down it for itself. The queen finds it, summons all of these shamans to go and try to grow it up and build it up. And thus Briar is born, the final Rosetta to sort of take her place next to her kinsman. But she's different, she's hardier, she's stronger because she grew amongst the brambles, amongst the briars, amongst the thorns. And not only is she stronger, but she's the youngest, and she is the one that he's most interested in going out and actually seeing the rest of the world. As you can see here, over the ages, her brothers and sisters had become content with their slice of paradise. They would spend their days lounging about the lazy sun, and they became more and more like the woods that surrounded them. But Briar was filled with a desire to move, to spread her roots far and wide. She would be the first Rosetta to set foot outside Candlehold, showing that it is possible for you to leave Candlehold. Well, most to leave Candlehold, but they didn't really want to. She did. The only one that can't really leave Candlehold is the one who created it through their own reckless spell at the end of a desperate battle, and that is the Queen, who is holding everything together and making sure that she carries on the memories of that third age. And if you move forward into the lore, into the present day, after Briar has sort of left and is checking out the surrounding area of Aria, you have the Grand Adventure storyline, which takes Lexi from her home in Volthaven, and they discover, I'm just going to briefly summarize this, they discover when the flow moves through in a very volatile way and uncovers this one portion of a mountain that had always been there, they realize that there was a secret cave with some just megalithic structures, a giant door. They don't really know how to open it, but they figure like something occurs and they figure out, oh, okay, look, this is like possible. And so they find Oldham as well. They run into Oldham. They find this book and they're trying to figure it out. He has no idea what it says, but he knows someone who might. And so they travel down. Very brief paraphrase. They run into Briar, the Rosetta that is on the move and actually traveling out of Candlehold. She takes them to the Queen, which, by the way, is totally depicted on Embodiment of Earth. She's been there the whole time. That is the Queen of Candlehold, sitting there on her, wooden throne as she's slowly but surely melding with it. And this depicts like the conversation between Lexi, Oldham, Briar, between her friends, including Yorick, all of them trying to figure out what this book from long ago says about what could be happening, the volatility that surrounds Aria, the possible like craziness that's going on outside of their borders. And she is incredibly slow. She's incredibly methodical. She's constantly falling asleep. Her memory is beginning to cloud. And finally, after they wake her up multiple times, she takes the book and she tells them that these words were written by the seers. And the seers, they don't know who those are because they are the seers of old, not the seers that, exist now. This is a secret group, hidden allies, bearers of the indigo eye. Find them if they still exist. And it is the words of the Queen of Candlehold that propel the story forward and make them go and actually look for the seers, and that brought us to Everfest. And we don't know anything else about whether or not they found them within the story of Everfest. We don't know if they actually located this secret group of Bearers of the Indigo Eye, which, come on, has to be the Eye of Ophidia. Nevertheless, it is through this interaction with a dying queen that they realize that they're supposed to go forward and find this group of seers, which is why I think maybe we see if friends are going to be coming to pay their respects for the passing of Candlehold, the queen. This could be where we see the introduction of the seers, which would be very cool. So this set is about life and death. It's about birth and rebirth. It's about coming up from the ground and returning to it. And we can see that with some of the spoiler cards that have been shown to us thus far. Let's quickly talk about Florian, who is an Elemental Runeblade hero young. He also has access as an elemental, to playing elemental cards, because that is his talent, but specifically what essence you get means what you can play within that elemental branch, and he can play earth cards. As you can see, Essence of Earth gives him that power. He can't play lightning, and he can't play ice cards, but he can play earth cards and anything labeled Elemental Runeblade, which is great as well. He says, if there are 4 or more earth cards in your banish zone, Florian gets if you would create 1 or more aura tokens. Instead, create that many +1 of each token. And why does that matter? Well, look at a card like Germinate, kind of really points this whole theme out. It's a double X Earth Runeblade action card that pitches blue and blocks for 3, so it's already great. It's his specialization, and it says create a rune chant or embodiment of Earth token, and then you repeat that process X more times, and then you gain X plus 1 health, which is pretty cool. So if you make X 1 and you pay 2 for this effect, then you're going to create a rune chant or an embodiment, and then repeat that process 1 more time, and then gain 2 health, which is pretty nice, especially if you combine that with his effect here, because if you would create 1 or more aura tokens, instead you create that many +1 of each of those tokens. This card can get out of hand pretty fast. Things can start growing and propagating and growing a lot faster when you trigger off of his effect. And you're gaining life, you're gaining health. So clearly, the Earth side of things is about, well, in the cards that we've seen thus far, is about gaining life, growing, this sort of representation of birth. And this is a very good example of that card. Now, we don't have any of the wizards, but we do have the other Runeblade, and this is Elemental Runeblade Aurora, and she has the essence of lightning. So instead of being all about growth and birth, she is about speed and the abundance of energy that you have when you're full of life. And once per turn instant, you get to pay 2 resources. Create Embodiment of Lightning token. By the way, that just gives go again. The Embodiment of Earth makes your cards better to block and preserve your life. This gives you that energy and that go to really attack a lot. Gives you a lot of vibrance and vitality. Activate this only if you've played a lightning card this turn. And that's a pretty easy thing to go about doing. And we haven't seen her specialization, but we have seen Channel Lightning Valley, which is a lightning instant. You can play this at instant speed on your turn or on your opponent's turn. It says the first time you deal damage to an opposing hero each turn, draw a card. That's right. You can play this for 0 on your opponent's turn, ping them for 1 at the end of their turn, and the thing that you pinged them with draws you a card. That's pretty good. Drawing cards is what I like to do. And yes, this is a channel effect, so you can stick this out there if you can pitch a bunch of lightning cards on your turn to slowly but surely add channel counters to Channel Lightning Valley. This is quite an impressive card because you can draw a card on your turn, you can draw a card on your opponent's turn, you'd be cycling through your deck very quickly. And again, this lightning aspect really kind of shows the vitality of like just the natural go that really makes a lot of sense when you're thinking about what lightning could represent in a game. Pointing more towards the Earth side, again, a lot about life gain. This is the Earth Wizard Verdance's specialization. We have not seen her effect, and we have only seen her, her visage as a young hero. We haven't seen any of the adult heroes, by the way. I think that's really exciting. This costs 1, it blocks 3. It is a wizard action card. I am so happy that wizards are a thing. Oh my god, I love wizards so much. It says gain 1, and then it says gain 1, and then it says gain 1. Why 3 instances of gain 1? Well, we can expect there to be some interaction with, timings and the ability to maybe increase the effects here. I do not believe AMP works on this card because AMP affects things that deal arcane damage, but we could imagine in a world where AMP exists to buff up the amount of triggers that you could get, or to increase the points on the amount of triggers, this could get really cool. You could be, if there's some way for like an Earth version of AMP where you just increase the amount instead of increasing arcane damage, gain 3, gain 3, gain 3, like this could get out of hand very quickly. And maybe that has something to do with her effect that we don't quite know yet. Nevertheless, this is a really cool card that points again to the birth and rebirth. And then we'll talk about Channel Millennium Tree as well. This costs 3. It's an Earth action aura. It has Channel Earth as well. Think Channel Mount Heroic, right? Blocks for 3. It's red. It says go again. When this enters the arena and at the beginning of your action phase, AMP 3. AMP, again, is a new keyword that was introduced with Kindle that basically says the next thing that deals arcane damage, the next source of arcane damage that's being dealt is pushed up by whatever the AMP number is. So in this case, AMP 3 means it's going to deal +3. This is the equivalent of Channel Mount Heroic for wizards. Just understand what that means. Channel Mount Heroic is busted. Now, Channel Mount Heroic applies for every attack that you play. This just applies because of AMP 3. This just applies to the first thing that you do, like the next thing that you deal damage with. So it's not to the same degree, but it is quite good. Quite good. And the card that is quintessential to the point of the set, we have... Okay, come here, I'll read to you. It's tea time.
Tea time.
Art time. Lunch time. Time to
Eat.
It's time to eat. That's right.
Eat.
Okay, my son has decided to sit with me the rest of the video because that's what you want. So that's okay. Felling the Crown is what I was going to say. Felling the Crown costs 3. It's an Earth action attack. Blocks for 3. It's a red, and it is quintessential to the storyline of this set. It says if there are 4 or more Earth cards in your banished zone, this gets +4 attack, so it attacks for 8 for 3. And then it has the keyword decompose. When this attacks, you may banish 2 Earth cards and an action card from your graveyard. And if you do, each hero puts a card from their hand to the bottom of their deck. So if you don't have any cards in hand, you don't have to trigger it. I mean, obviously you go about the decompose, right? But you don't lose a card. But your opponent can lose a card. Now, the best part about this card, in my opinion, besides the fact that it's super playable, is the text at the bottom, the story text. And it says, with her fall, the ancient enchantment begins to fade, and the rotwood stirs once more. Kaysen, Maela Soothsayer. Now, I don't know what the rotwood is. We don't know at all what the rotwood is. I did a search within legendarystories.net. The rotwood has never been used in a lore blurb at all. But I will say I did find, let me see if I can find which one it was. This one? Yeah, I did find this in Evergreen. When Evergreen was spoiled in Tales of Aria, the Forest of Candlehold is older than Aria itself. Its tranquil woods are evergreen, for the Queen's magic has rendered them eternal. But if the Queen begins to pass, what happens to the eternal forest that has been the home of the Rosetta ever since the moment she made that spell and exploded the essence of the elemental? That's the real question. What happens when the Queen passes? So that's right, Samuel. That's what we are going to find out with this set. And I am so excited. I'm so incredibly excited to see what wizards are going to do, to see where this set goes. I really hope that the lore has some deep implications for like just heroes, and the storyline that was started and never quite finished about searching for the seers. Well, I don't know what's going to happen, but I am incredibly excited to find out. So if you enjoyed this type of video, if you want more lore dumps, let me know in a comment below. If you want more lore videos, you need to watch this video, share it with your friends, share it with your mom, share it with your mom's friend and her dog. Tell them all to watch it, because if people watch this video, I'll make more of it. And you know what? Make the number go slightly higher as well. And I'll probably make more as well. As always, everybody, thanks for watching.